What's up guys and girls of YouTube, how are we today? We are looking at the second of two videos today, and it's the 3.5 vehicle changes to the War of Nations update that's just come out, or I should say is coming out. So without further ado, we're going to have a look at the tanks. Because there are lots and lots of tanks on the actual list, I will only be able to cover a small minority of them, and there will be quite a lot of tanks that you might be going for, might be driving at the moment, that will be changed, buffed, and some nerfs. And there's some quality nerfs, and I mean really quality nerfs. One tank in particular has received a lot of hate from Wargaming, and I don't see why, but we'll show it in the game. Apparently, maybe the stats themselves make a difference to how it handles, maybe it doesn't, but I know full well that this tank has been nerfed in the past and hasn't been one that has been well received at being nerfed in the past. So, without further ado again, let's actually have a look. Starting off with the Chinese line. There are quite a few tanks that are relatively early on which are being changed over, but one of the main ones that you'll see in particular is the 131. As it is, its shot dispersion after the turret rotation or during the turret rotation is being reduced, so you can get better ability to lock onto your target and shoot it, and maybe get a better opportunity of actually penning and doing damage. This is being linked to the 100mm though. The T-34-2 is the next one, which is a lot of tanks usually in game that people see, is going to get a bit of a change. Its aim time is being buffed 3.4 to 3.1. Again, maybe not something you notice, but if you were to put the two side by side, you would see a big difference. So this is all going to be good. T-34 premium, the T-34-3 premium black. Gun depression's going up 3 to 5, so you're going to get better ability to look down. Any kind of gun depression. I mean when you look at the 121 and the 113, sorry. Whilst they don't look to be getting a lot in terms of gun depression like buff with it, anything is useful, especially in the Chinese tanks, because these aren't specifically amazing. The 121 I love as a medium tank. Its alpha that it produces is awesome, so any kind of like buff to this tank I will happily take with open arms, and I know a lot of the 113 drivers will be very much thank you for this. The tank overall is not ideal as a heavy tank, so any kind of buff to other stats themselves will make it maybe more balanced, but we'll have to see how that goes. May find in a future update that other things get changed with this tank. The French line, the very first one, this is the tank I was on about, the AMX 50 Foch 155. Its heat round is being nerfed. I don't understand why it is that this tank receives so much hate from the people who nerf and buff certain tanks, but it does, and it seems to have been singled out here. This tank has been buffed in the past, nerfed in the past. People never understood why, because of things such as your Waffle, your Death Star, etc., your E3 as well, before that was even nerfed, that were questionable in game. People didn't like them so very much, and I don't quite understand why it needs to be nerfed if it does. I mean, well, yes, 408mm of penetration is still quite a lot for a high explosive anti-tank shell, but at the same time, there are other tanks and specifics that you could be looking into. That itself is one of the tier 10 ones. Again, we're now going through like your lower tiers and then moving on up. There aren't too many French tanks, but there are still quite a few to have a look into. If we keep on going down, there is one particular I wanted to look at as well. Your light tanks, your MX-12T and your MX-1375, getting slight changes specifically to actual terrain resistance on the top, as well as things such as your shot dispersion and your depression itself. Not the depression, sorry, just the shot dispersion on specific chassis. The 1390, I believe it is. There we go. Yeah, it's the 1390, sorry, with the elevation that it's getting a bit of a buff. The other two before are getting very slight changes to some of the turrets, so some of the packages are getting overall being changed slightly better. And I mean slightly, these are only 0.2 difference or 0.1. I should stop knocking the microphone because that's really quite annoying. Again, not too much, but they're not well known for its ability to pen tank, so anything that will allow you to maybe aim at a weak spot slightly better, especially if you're sat in a bush camping and spotting over the top of a hill, anything like that's going to help. Unfortunately, the AMX Chaffee doesn't actually receive very much other than the fuel tank heavy average. Not quite sure what that means. I'm sure there is someone that can tell me. The Lorraine 40T, the tier 9 medium autoloader, as well as the backchat as well, they're getting slightly different buffs. The Lorraine, maybe. I've not played it. I am looking to try and play it to get the backchat. His aim time has been reduced from 3 to 2.5, but the backchat 25 is getting a aim time reduction. 90mm, yes, that's quite a lot, but there's also a big aim time reduction on the 100mm. Now, the tank itself is not one I've had issues with, specifically in game. They are lightly armoured, they can move very fast, they're autoloader. Obviously, they have a long reload. So, again, maybe the stats showed something needed to be changed on the tank itself. The way in which people were playing it, it wasn't so much of a sniper as it was to just rush forward and try and flank someone. So I don't really think that the aim time was necessary when you're moving around at 35, 40 kilometers an hour, circling a tank with your turret pretty much buried into the tank itself. Anyways, we'll move on from that one. We're on to the Germany tanks. Some of the changes that it will affect in terms of its ability. So this is again an actual round change as the 88mm. You can see the tanks itself that it will change. So this is standard penetration. On the going from 132 to 135, you can see the tanks in front that it will actually amend. So these are all like low tiers, like 6s and 7s, etc. So there are going to be some. The Tiger probably needed it. I don't specifically know about much else, but yeah, we'll take it any day of the week, especially the Tiger drivers. I don't know if that will actually physically make them any better if they're still going to sit back and snipe, but then you go. German heavy tanks, they'll do what they want. Again, some of the changes going through, we're just going to skip past them because they're all the low tiers. Not really too much to them. If you're going to play low tier tank, someone's going to obviously take an MLTS or a T-Rex, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter how much you buff a tank, they're still going to probably kill you, especially when they're firing red, because why not? Moving on to the tier 6s, again, these are tanks that I've physically played, so I can have a look into them and see what kind of difference they'll make, but also these are relatively popular with a tank bowl coming up. These are ones you are going to be seeing on a regular basis. The VK Heavy, very, very good tier 5 tank. I think the 36 is the tier 6, which is why I'm making sure I don't get confused with anything. The depression themselves has been changed on, specifically the VK Heavy, so you're going to get slightly better ability to look down. How much you'll notice, I don't know, but when you're actually going up a hill or downhill, or you're looking over the top of cover, it might actually help. Now we come to a nerf. The first one I was actually able to see, the Nashorn. The invisibility while moving is slightly better, but the invisibility while stationary is going up. I do apologise, that's so full of crap, it's unbelievable. That's going to be the buff, sorry. There is a nerf in here, specifically within the German line that I was looking into, that again, questionable, and it involves another tank which can actually be hidden quite well. The steering wheel, going slightly better. We are looking at this one in particular, the Panther M10. This is going to be the hero tank, so this is going to be the one that's going to be won by the people of the tank bowl. I do believe I'm correct in saying that this one will be affected, the one that you actually win in the tank bowl, and it's getting a very, very slight armor increase. How much of an increase? Not very much, 3mm. So they may change something later, I don't know, because I would like to raise a question, but you don't really see many of them in the game, specifically because they're not ideally good. You will see them after the tank bowl for like a week or so until people figure out that they're not good themselves, so they're going to be changing them. The Borsig, now we start getting onto the actual nerfs. This is going to be a regular theme amongst a lot of the tank destroyers that I'm going to show you in here. As you can see, the view range has been nerfed by 40 meters. Not ideal, but because of the camera rating, it's not really needed that it needs to have such long view range, especially when people can slap on coat optics and binos. You'll probably be able to get back up to the 400 meter view mark rather than having 440. Top tier tanks aren't immune to this. Lower tier tanks aren't immune to this. They themselves, especially on the American line as well, like the T67 I'll show you in a bit as well, that's also getting a nerf in terms of its view range. The Jag Tiger 88, this is the tier 8 premium tank destroyer that the Germans have, is getting a buff on the top speed up to 38. The reload time on the Koenig Jag Panzer is being reduced. Again, not very one that you see on a regular basis. I wouldn't specifically say it's a good tank, but I assume there are people that do like it. I like that. I like the T95E2. People despise the tank, so each to their own in that case. There are a lot of buffs in terms of the reload times to a lot of the tanks if they don't have a nerf such as the view range. So you'll tend to see that the reload time, even though I shouldn't be highlighting because you can't physically see the text, the reload time has been changed very, very slightly, but you'll notice the difference, especially if you have crew perks. Tiger 2, this is a very, very good German heavy tank, tier 8. It's getting a slight change to its accuracy, being improved somewhat. So expect to see more Tiger 2 sitting on the back of the map because they are excellent sniping tanks. And this is going to be a very, very common theme with most of the tanks that have a buff themselves to the accuracy. It will be quite a lot, and it will be tanks that you don't really expect to be sitting back on the back of the map, but do anyway, so this will probably improve their ability to do that. E75 is getting a bit of a change for its actual max gun depression. I'm not too sure on how it will look in game, but anything whereby you can physically look down is always going to be a bonus. So the E75 is a very, very good tank. If it wasn't for the fact I was using the M46 pattern, I would be using this as my tier 9 tank, as the one that I'd be using on a regular basis. I never really kept a tier 9 tank, but a lot of people grinding them meant I had to keep some sort of tier 9 tank, but I needed to keep one that I wanted to play. Don't have the E100 because I like the E75 so much. The Leopard PTA, getting a slightly different change. Now this is probably to put up with the fact that the tank itself is a bit poo, would be one way of putting it, outclassed by other tier 9 mediums. Well, having said that, when you have a T54 in the game, any kind of tier 9 premium is kind of outclassed. But it's getting a slight change. It is still a good tank overall. It's very, very accurate when it's firing. The APCR rounds it fires is very, very useful, fast firing, so it's able to cover the large distance in very short time, so you can lead. You can make those really tight shots if they're just on the top, if you just see the coupler, etc. So things like this are going to be changed, and it's going to be slightly better. How many snapshots you're going to get on the move, I don't know, but you might actually see a change. You might see RNG being in your favour now. The WW100, thankfully, it's not getting any kind of like accuracy bonus and things like that. Jagdpanzer E100, getting a view range reduction of 10 meters. Won't sound like a lot, but it's still a lot. The Waffle, again, thank you, is getting a reduction in its view range by 40 meters. Can you believe that this had 420 meter view range to start with? I was playing a game earlier and I actually said, oh my god, I've outspotted a Waffle in a medium. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like Christmas all at once, even though we've already had it. Unfortunately, it's not going to get removed from the game. It might be replaced by the Grill 15 later, into like a side-by-side, but we don't know what's happening with the E100. Whether it's going to be a Waffle line that goes to the Grill 15 or whether it's just going to be a completely separate line. We'll wait and see and find out. On to the Japanese line. There's not too much in here that actually changed too much, because again the line itself is not massive, so they haven't really affected too much of like the dispersions. As you can see on the front parts, it's just mainly equipment that's been used within the tank, and there's some changes to like the Type 93 Heavy. Like I say, not too much. The actual premium STA getting a slight shot dispersion being reduced overall, so you might see people enjoying that quite a bit. I haven't used myself, but I know people do enjoy the tank because it is something that you see on a regular basis. That's sort of how I put my looks across. Maybe it was a case that this tank is used more than this one, it's a premium tank. Maybe that one's slightly better. It gives proper evidence when you see that the M10 isn't used very much, but then there's other premium tanks that are. Now we get into the good stuff. The USA line. Again, your tier 1s and whatever being changed over. These are where I was talking about earlier with the view range that lower tier tanks are not immune. The M8A1 getting a massive reduction in its maximum in its view range itself. 50 meter reduce down to 320. It is getting some slight changes for the invisibility after it being shot, but again, this carries on going. It's a very common theme with the USA to remove the view range of most of their tank destroyers. Maybe for the next tank. So the T40 is getting a reduction of 90 meters from its ability to see. The Chaffee getting a slight bit difference in terms of the invisibility after being shot. The T67, during the trial and tested rank battles, it was one that was very much used all the time because it was very, very good. It was a scout tank as well as a hidden TD as well as a fast moving little bar steward that flanked everything, and I used it all the time because of it. It's getting a view range reduction down from 350 to 320, and on the second turret it's getting a reduction from 370 to 340. So overall it's getting a 30 meter reduction in both the turrets. Maybe it'll actually change the way it plays the tank. Maybe you'll have to rely more on your own scouts to go forward. Maybe you can't sit in the bush as much, but if you stick binos back on, you'll probably gain that 30 meter view range difference. It's just the fact that you could have held up to 400 with the second turret. 30 meters is quite a lot when you consider the actual distance of when you spot a tank and when you can't. It will mean that if you're in cover for this tank, for example, you will need to roll back, fire, then move forward, but there's no point with that. You might as well just roll back, keep on firing, and then roll forward if you have the ability to not remain undetected. The other changes they're making, not so much for the artillery. Again, it's not slight artillery changes for accuracy or anything like that. There's just slightly different variations to it. We're going through the light tanks themselves. M18, the Hellcat not getting much change apart from the actual resistance. And then we're going on to some of the heavy tanks or the higher ups. This is one I couldn't quite understand. Heavy tanks getting an increase in view range because they're a heavy tank. They're not really meant to have that, but maybe for any kind of change that goes through, there has to be some reasons to why it's been changed. If we take, for example, the Foster has been nerfed in terms of its heat round, there has to be a reason for that. Whether it was a legitimate reason, whether just looking at stats, I don't know. But this is something which is Changing for the M6. So if you do drive the M6 for some reason, maybe you're still grinding up the American line towards a heavy, maybe the E5, you'll get an extra view range on it. So it may assist you if you're being spotted by something which is in camo, in a bush, or even out in the open, but is so far away. Say for example it was 320. If you're now with 20 meters further away, you'll be able to still spot them. So it will help you somewhat. Why it was needed, I don't know. I don't really see the point in buffing view ranges on heavy tanks because it's not specifically their role. But we'll see the difference that changed. Like I say, there will always be a reason for it. This is one I'm kind of liking. The M46 pattern, like I say, this is one I play. This is the Top Gun, the 105mm, with its really, really nice alpha damage. It's tended to be a tank I've really liked to play. The shot dispersion during the turret rotation has been reduced by 0.02. It's going down to 0.08. So it will make it a little bit nicer if I'm saying cover and I'm shooting people or I'm trying to lead shots. The actual circle itself will be tighter. The E3, once again, is being changed because why not? Some slight changes, but not too much. The actual view range itself is staying the same, but this can't be said for the E4, which is having a reduction of 10 meters. Moving on to the M46 pattern, the M48 pattern, sorry. Finally, it's getting some sort of changes to it. I've put myself off getting the M48 pattern because it's so outclassed by every other tank in the game. It's getting a reload time reduction, which is a good thing. It's getting a better aim time and it's getting a better shot dispersion during the turret rotation, quite a big if I'm honest. It's going towards the M46 pattern. One of the things that I noticed playing this tank and when I got put in tier 10 games is how much faster the M46 pattern is than the M48, how much better the M46 felt than the M48. There were times I had problems penning stuff, but then being a medium tank, you were usually finding yourself in positions where you could hit weak spots on tanks. So I never really had that issue of not being able to pen something unless I didn't aim it right, or if I had an RNG bounce for whatever reason. So I might try the M48 pattern out now. I might actually buy it and see what it's like. I do need to get a bit more silver because I need to get the equipment with it. I have enough to actually physically get the tank, but not enough to fill it up and actually play it. And I don't want to sell other tanks because I still actually play them. The UK tanks, some questionable ones, but also some decent ones. This is going through them all. You can see again the Electo getting a view range reduction because why not? It seems to be that the way in which the update has worked, a lot of the lower tier tank destroyers, because of their high degree of use, is a nice way of putting it, in the lower tiers, and how much they could just sit in a bush and just dirt people for unknown amount of damage. I mean, if you've got the Electo with a HE that's hitting a weak spot on a tank, you could do a stupid amount of damage. Tank destroyers are very, very well known for low tier battles where you could just go YOLO and destroy lots of stuff, or even if you didn't go YOLO, you just sat in a bush, you could still take them out. The view range will have certainly helped with that. Some changes to the 88s. I hate that line so very much. The gun carrier, one of the funniest tank destroyers in the game, get reduction is aim time, going down to 2.1 for the 32 pounder, and for the 3.7 inch it's going from 2.3 to 2. Going up the heavy line, slight increase in the view range for the Churchill 7, and the Sherman Firefly is getting a terrain resistance buff, yes. So because a tank isn't good enough as it is, it's quite a popular tank, so you will see quite a few of them. So whilst you won't really notice that much considering how much they're changing it, still ideal. Moving on to other tanks which I specifically use and you do still find in the game, the gun depression of the Comet has been increased somewhat. You will find if you ever played the Centurion 1, the tier 8 medium at least, the gun depression on that is very, very good. So it is very, very nice to see that the sort of depression line is going all the way through the other tanks in the line, medium specifically. Let's go on to the two. This is one which I found amusing. The 183 is having a view range reduction. The penetration on the headstrand is staying the same. There's not much really to say about that. These are sort of changes when you look at some of the changes that made to it and they see that this itself, they do look at the stats. They say it's balanced. Many people say it isn't. So there's some changes to that. The queryable would be the best way of putting it. Maybe they might change it later on. It just depends on if it is that the player base decides to carry on playing the game and not use the tank to its full potential. Moving on to the Russian line, there's not so much changes down below. The SU-101 is one of them I'm going to be playing later on. because I've got the tier 6 tank destroyer. I think this is the tier 7 or 8, I can't remember which, but it's going up the Object 263 line. It's getting some differences in terms of its invisibility after being shot, but it is also getting a new package, so it'll be interesting to see how the 122mm works when I do eventually get it. I haven't really played too much. The tier 6s is kind of an annoying tier to play. You can either get absolutely mullered or muller the other team and do no damage whatsoever and get a ×2 where you get 400 XP, because reasons. It's good. Some changes to the KB4. This is the tier 8 heavy tank. Its HP is being increased by 50. Its reload time is being buffed as well as its aim time. Not played this tank myself because I was going up one of the I7 and the IS4 line, but I never got to these tanks. I only had the IS3, never moved on to the KB4 because I was technically going towards the IS4, but then I needed the BL9 in order to play the STI, so I had to go back, and then I've just stopped and not played it. I've been playing other tanks. The Object 704, tier 9 tank destroyer, it's getting a nerf. The reload time for the 152 is being changed from 17.1 to the 18.1 seconds. Again, your crews will still bring it down, but an extra second is an extra second. It will make a big difference. There will be certainly times when that extra second will get you killed, and that extra second will mean that if it wasn't there, you would actually get the kill yourself. The SU-12254, again, I think this is a tier 9 tank destroyer just before the 263, is getting a reload time buff on both the 100mm and the 122. This tank is actually really quite good, so that will be interesting to see why it is that has been reduced, the reload time overall. So again, wouldn't mind playing it and seeing how it goes. The T10, this is the tier 9 heavy tank moving on to the I7, which is down below. It's getting some terrain resistance and shot dispersion. Again, very similar to the I7. And the 268 is getting a view range reduction. Whether that could be in the fact that it's been changed because of its ability to hide in a bush really quite well. Maybe they're trying to change it to be more of a camping sniper whereby it can't be seen and has to rely on people to spot stuff. I don't know. Considering what's been changed on the map, it looks to be... I don't know. Well, in my head, I've got the map Prokhorov currently sat in a bush at the far back trying to spot people over the top. Maybe they see that the camera rating itself is very, very good, and couple that with a very long view range made it quite overpowered in some cases, so they did need to reduce it. Who knows? I mean, it's not one I've ever really had a problem with. You don't really see them that often in the game as well. So it's again a change to a tank which I didn't see or necessitate a change, but it could also be that because they've changed other tier 10 tank destroyers and lowered the view range overall, which is a common theme, including the low tiers, maybe they need to do this one to balance it in with the other tanks that they've actually lowered. But then when you see the Death Star and how that's got a better view range than the Object 268, but where's camera rating, that might also, and I've completely gone past it, it is in there somewhere. You'll be able to see in the actual thread when I post a link into the description below. And we move on to your China tanks, which we've seen up there, but we move on to overall the tanks that they're changing in terms of the looks. These are some which I didn't notice. Where is it now? There it is. HD collision and visual models. That itself, it may be armor that they're actually changing. This itself, again, I presume someone will be able to tell me. It does look to be the case that it will be. In which case, that T57 is looking very, very tasty to get back again. Okay. And the M103, I assume the copula is still a piss easy target to hit. Okay. Well, I have to admit, I didn't actually scroll down this far because I just assumed that what they were doing with the HD models is just the way they look. It looks to be they may have changed the harmers of some of the things. In which case, oh dear. If that's correct, is that true? They buffed the side armor of the Death Star? I hope in some way I've overlooked this and maybe it isn't, and that can't be right. I need to get off this Centurion 1 before I actually get this update, because I really don't want to put up with a nerf turret. I mean, the tank itself is shit as it is. I don't want it. Oh no. I hope I'm wrong. Please comment below and tell me I'm actually wrong with the way this has gone. I might be being deadly stupid. I really hope I am. Please prove me wrong. The WZ-131, again, the tank we looked at earlier is getting a slight change, reduction in terms of its turret, so it seems. The 113, Ooh. Okay. So whilst the hull doesn't look to be changing, the turret is. So that will be nice. It's a shame the 121 doesn't. So I wonder if the turret armor of the 121 is better than the 113. It doesn't say. It just says it's got the HE model, so could be. Moving on to the here, the IS-3. Oh, get a reduction in its size because definitely needed it. This is very, very all interesting. I'm sorry I can't really comment too much more on it. I mean, I don't know. I'm really quite shocked by this. Didn't think I would be. Most of it's just normal and just lollable, but appears to be no. There is also notifications of the mouse. This is just going on the updates that's happening for the PC. That's getting a buff to actually be nice, but it's probably not going to be coming to the console maybe soon. I mean, having said that, the Death Star itself got nerfed on the PC, but hasn't on the console for various reasons, but we'll see how that goes. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry for the last part that I was blabbering on, because I'm very, very shocked by all the information I'm seeing now in terms of the hull armors and turret armors and what's been changed. So that will be very, very interesting. I will be linking this in the video below, and I'll also be linking to the previous video. So if you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on both, because I won't mind looking at your opinions, and also for you to fingers crossed tell me that in some way I've made a proper mare of an issue and actually thought that this is, I've thought it's armor when it's not. So let me know. If it is, then we're all doomed. Armageddon. At least it's coming in February or something like that from what I read in the news. But anyways, have fun, and I shall see you later.